The truth will set you free, but first, it will piss you off. When I was asked to come and speak tonight on empowerment, I do what I often do is I think deeply about what I think empowerment is, how empowerment, the word empowerment, and just how it's generally used in the English language. And I started researching to see how people use this word. And because I'm a little bit of a word nerd, I like to understand how we utilize words and how we embody some of these different themes. And I've come to the conclusion that I don't actually like this word very much. I don't like the word empowerment, at least not in the way that it's traditionally used. And I'll give you an example to help you solidify and cement that a little bit. So in my world, I'm a women's health educator. I often see, whether it's doctors, coaches, practitioners online, use verbiage that sounds like, I want to empower women to reach some health goal, to better their health, to lose weight, balance their hormones, etc. And when we think about the structure of that sentence, I think we actually have it backwards. And you'll see in just a few moments my dislike for the way that we use the word empower. So when we think about, I want to empower women, I is the subject of the sentence, the main part of the sentence. Want to empower is the verb, right? Or the action that's being taken by the subject. So I'm empowering. I'm wanting to empower. I want to empower women. The woman in this sentence is the object, right? Or the object at which the action is being imparted into. So you might start to see a little bit of my dislike for the way that we're using this word empowerment, insofar as the woman is the passive recipient of the active action from the subject. My point here is that that statement is actually quite disempowering. It's actually quite disabling, right? I don't empower you. I don't empower you. You empower you, right? And so when we use the word in this way, which I was observing in the weeks sort of leading up to this talk, I'm actually going to go a little bit further and say that it's not just disempowering, it's not just disabling, it's theft. It's stealing. So let's imagine this woman in this scenario where she hires a health coach to, have more healthful eating or exercise more or whatever the goal is, and she's successful in her pursuit. Well, her victory is not hers. Her victory is the person who empowered her, who opened the gate, who allowed her to walk through, gave her permission and gave her the tools. So there's a theft of her victory if she's successful. And if she's not successful, it's even worse. Okay? It's actually corrupt theft, because now if she's not successful in her journey, then the empowerer, the subject, I want to empower, the person who empowered her, can wash his or her proverbial hands and say, well, I empowered her. I gave her the tools. I showed her the way. She's the one that chose not to do it. So all that to say that I don't empower you. I am not your guru in the way that Tony Robbins likes to say. You empower you. You are the one. This is an inside job. Being empowered is not looking externally for validation or not looking externally for permission to do something. It's a return home. It's coming home. It's an inside job. And so maybe some of you are thinking, okay, I got it. So how can I now be the gatekeeper of my own destiny? How can I be the person who can now empower myself to follow my goals and follow my dreams? And I want to share with you some frameworks. I'm not going to empower you, but I'm going to share some observations that I've made over my 19-year tenure as a clinician in private practice, seeing tens of thousands of patients. I can tell you that there are a distinct set of characteristics between someone who sets a goal and achieves it and someone who sets a goal and doesn't achieve it, and that is visualization. When we often think about visualization, we're taught, think about yourself crossing the finish line. Think of yourself losing the weight, balancing the hormones, whatever the goal is that you set, personal or professional, building the business, making the money. Make it a sensorial experience. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Who's there? What are you wearing? What's the perfume? We think about how to activate all of our senses. And from a neurophysiological perspective, this is the absolute wrong way to do it. If you use that as a technique initially when you're starting off a goal, it can be helpful insofar as that we do see when someone begins to visualize a goal, we see a heart rate quickening, we see blood pressure rising, we see some of these sort of indicators that the body is readying itself for action. The problem, of course, is that when we stop the visualization exercise, that all of those ready responses from the body actually come right back down to baseline. So the heart rate comes down very quickly, the blood pressure comes back down very quickly, right to where you were before you started that exercise. And you might say to me, okay, doc, well, like all I'm gonna do then is I'm just gonna visualize every single day so I can, get my activation and I can go and pursue my goal. Wrong again. Because what happens, of course, is there's this law of diminishing returns in that the more that you visualize a goal, the less your body's gonna react to it. So what I have seen very successfully done in the clients and patients that I've served is actually the opposite. What patients have done that have rendered their goals, the pursuit of their goals successful, is actually visualizing failure. All the elements of failure, every single possible way that you can be wrong along the way. When we are visualizing failure, this is a much stronger predictor of behavior than it is to visualize your labs improving, your cholesterol levels coming down to where they should be, or fitting in your skinny jeans, or whatever the goal is that you've set for yourself. We are much more wired as humans to think about the fatalistic, the fear of loss, the fear of abandonment, the fear of death and disease. So we'll use this woman that I've sort of been talking about through our time together. She would be much better served thinking about how she's gonna feel about herself if she doesn't get up in the morning and go to the gym. She would be much better served to think about herself now as a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old. If she doesn't take action now, what is the consequence of her not doing anything for the 10 or 20 or 30 years when she's 60, 70, 80, or 90? What's it gonna look like for her then? What disease might she acquire because she hasn't taken action earlier on in her life? Right? When we think about sort of the big four, it's like cardiovascular disease, cerebrovascular disease, cancer, type 2 diabetes. These things are very painful. They're painful for the individual to experience, and they're painful for everybody around her. So if she has this disease that's very painful and it's a big strain on her family, maybe she doesn't get to see her children grow up, or maybe she doesn't get to see them achieve the milestones that she wants for them. You can start to see that the fear of failure, the fear of loss and abandonment is much more of a strong predictor of behavior. And in fact, the literature is very clear on this. We actually see a doubling of the likelihood of someone being able to succeed when they are visualizing their failure. And trust me, I wish I could stand up here and say, like, if we just think about the puppies and the kittens and the rainbows, everything would be fine, but we're just not wired that way. Okay, so let's bring it back to empowerment. So we've been talking a little bit about how empowerment is unhitching ourselves from the external, right? How we are unhitching ourselves from validation and permission from the external, and it's an inside job. And I hope that I've given you some examples from the literature and science around what it actually takes to set and achieve a goal. And the other thing I would like to leave you with is that nobody's coming to save you. No government, no doctor, no husband, no wife, no boss, no neighbor. It's you. You are the savior. The kingdom of heaven is within. And so I want you to think about the goals that you feel are worthy of pursuit, that you want to achieve, not because someone else told you that you should or would or can, but because you feel internally that they are worthwhile of your time, your effort, and your focus. Because your life is simultaneously both too long and too short to not be all of who you are.